and then we need to understand what is the process being involved. Okay, so as an author, because this particular webinar we are going to concentrate.
And when you talk about the research question, how to write a good research question, the good research question would make
you can enjoy with this journey to benefit from this chat GPT. Actually,
Once again, welcome you, Doctor. You may continue now.
Can we start, Shalini?
You may continue, Doctor.
Okay,
Hello.
okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and share the screen for a short while. Hold on. Share the screen. Okay. Can everybody hear my voice and my presentation this evening? Yes? Shalini, can we see the presentation?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, that's good. Thank you so much for responding. Okay, okay, so now it's 5:34. I'm just gonna go and start now. All right, good evening to all. My name is Ahmad Fahim Zulkifli. I'm with the Faculty of Education in UITM, Malaysia. So I hope today to share with all of us today about teaching hack for success. All right. So first and foremost, I wish to say thank you, right, especially to all attendees today. So thank you so much for coming to today's webinar, and especially for the organizer for Quvae, yes, for making today's webinar possible. Thank you. All right. Let's go. So hopefully by the end of today's webinar, so we really hope that each one of us should be able to understand the purpose and benefit of teaching through movement and empathy. Also, we hope to gain some skill to modify teaching and learning in your class. And more importantly, we hope to reflect today's session and ready to adapt in your own class setting tomorrow. Right. Okay, so Joe, we'll talk a little bit about learning through movement. Okay, so when we talk learning through movement, the most basic concept when learning through movement is that we learn the content through movement, activity, and engagement with peers. And when we learn through movement, it means that we minimize the use of textbook and sitting down waiting for instruction. Yeah. So why? So the answer to that. So why is it important for us to learn through movement? Because it is much more fun. We learn and remember much better the content that we like and feel that there's value added to our life. And also it helped to connect between the concept and real life situation, which help to process and consolidate the information. Okay, we'll take for example first aid treatment. For example, we have the rice treatment and also the Dr. ABC. All right, so just try to imagine for a second. So in situation A, where we learn about Dr. ABC and rice concept by just listening and watching. And second situation, or in second class, we learn Dr. ABC and also rice treatment, rice procedure by doing it by listening and by watching the instructor doing, demonstrating, talking to your friends, and doing it together. So these two situations. So if we try to imagine ourselves in both classes, probably the majority of us today would rather go to the second class rather than the first class. Simply, it is much more fun because we can learn, we can hear, we can see, and we are doing it as well throughout the process. So those are very good example on how or why it is important for us to learn through movement. And one more thing, very simple example, if we still remember the day that we go for our driving license test, yes? So just try to imagine if yourself learn the driving test just by watching the computer and also reading books. So how does it feel when you go for your final test with the transport officer, for example? So those must be very nerve-wracking and feel anxiety, scared, and so forth. So by doing it, you feel much more better, much more understanding, much more confident in learning that particular content. Also promote class cohesion through movement. So when we learn through movement, there is so much more opportunity for the student to talk, to discuss, and to doing it with their friends rather than by sitting on the table and listening to what the teacher have said throughout the class session. Yeah, so by then they can speak more, so they can exchange much more idea, and they become much more closer to their friends and also to their teachers as well. And improve physical activity levels throughout the day. Now, so if we recall, our World Health Organization, yes, WHO, recommended that most of us for 60 minutes of physical activity accumulated throughout the day. And if we recall, our students nowadays, they spend most of their day at school, starting from morning and then till afternoon, and then on evening sessions, so they went to additional classes, tuition, and so forth. So most of the time they would spend their time at school. So at school, at campuses, provide the best opportunity for us to teach content, but also to give them opportunity for them to be active. Yeah, so unfortunately nowadays, especially here in Malaysia, unfortunately, and we are number one in Asia, uh, country with obesity. So we beat the like of Singapore, we beat the like of Indonesia, we beat the like of India, and so forth. Yeah, so it's very important for us to really look at school as an opportunity for us to do something, not only for us to teach, but also an opportunity for our students to be active. So hopefully they could become much more healthy, and they could learn better, and they could achieve academic performance better as well, right? So last but not least, when you teach through movement, you become unique. So just imagine if there's 10 teachers at your school or campuses, so the rest of the teachers are teaching regularly, teaching, and everybody are sitting on their table, very minimum activity. Okay, so if you teach through movement, you become unique. So the best part when you become unique, and the best part when you become weird in a good way, you become someone that is remembered by others. So let me just share very quickly one story, especially in Malaysia. We have one a particular vehicle produced by a company car called Perodua. Okay, so this Perodua company produced one car, what we call the MyV. It's a very regular car. It's 1.3 naturally aspirated, very simple, very regular car, and a cheap car as well. Okay, but surprisingly, if you come to Malaysia, if you have the opportunity to come to Malaysia, so most of the Malaysian regard this Perodua MyV as king in Malaysia. Right, so let me just share very quick. If we click on this link, so I'm just going to go back here. Just going to go and share this my video. So just watch it for a short while. Okay. Uh, okay. So thank you so much for watching that videos. Yeah. So that is a Myvi car. If we take a glimpse on that particular car, it looks very regular, very ordinary, nothing special about that particular car. Yes, but what that Prodwa Myvi are able to do and what that Prodwa Myvi willing to do is what make that Prodwa Myvi a king. And that's what that is the analogy, that is the spirit that I wish that each one of us try to embrace and to energize our class and to to transform any lesson that you might taught, for example history lesson or language lesson or any maybe most of the people deem as dull, boring, but I feel the key for us to energize, to transform our class is by through learning through movement. Yeah, so those are the first tips that I wish to share, and hopefully each one of us will reflect on it later. All right. So the next question will be when we wanted or when we have to start doing activity in your class. So there is one concept. I believe that many of us are familiar or at least have heard about it. What we call as the concept of brain break activity or energizer activity. So these are a very good activity that we can integrate into our class for us to energize, to promote learning, and to help our student learn much more effectively. Okay, so when to do activity, so probably after 15 to 20-minute interval, so then we can stop and try to integrate some activity into our classroom. So, of course, it also depends on some factor, yeah, such as interest and also upbringing of that particular student. For example, if we the particular activity is really close to the student, if we talk about game, if we talk about movies, if we talk about cartoon which is close to the student might feel much more closer to that particular content. And also upbringing, so we talk about student that is student athletes and also students with regular or different background. So students with different background would also influence how they would respond or react to learning through movement. Okay, now come to the teaching strategies. We hope to learn, we hope to reflect, and we hope to experiment it starting tomorrow. So first thing first, exploration and problem-based learning. Yeah, exploration and problem-based learning. If we take a look very quick on the right side of the screen, so there is all those few blocks of Lego. Yes, few blocks of Lego. So there is two situations. The first situation, we can provide instruction to the student. Okay, student. So when I say the word go, so you have to build A, for example. Yeah, against okay, student. When I say the word go, I need each one of you to build something out of that Lego block. So which one do you feel would be much more enriching to the student experience and learning? Probably the second situation, yeah, simply because they could have much more ownership of learning, they could experiment, they could be much more creative and so forth. So first thing first, why we need to exploration and problem-based learning. Why? Because things that are free of charge are less appreciated. Don't you agree? Yeah, if we give something for free to our student, most of the time our student do not remember and they do not appreciate our content. So just try to recall, one day if you go to a supermarket, anywhere that you are, okay, so there is one person that handing out all these brochure, all these pamphlet, teaching about one content. So most of the time, once we receive that brochure, we either keep it inside our bag, or either we give it to other people, or simply we leave it to some random places. So those are the things that what happen if we give free of charge. Yeah. Against, if we, for example, uh, for example, some of our students are working part-time, so they are doing all this Grab, all these Uber, for example. So the money that they get from doing all those part-time, So if we ask them, they are much more meaningful and impactful to them. So they are much more particular in terms of where they spend their money, how much that they spend their money, and they wanted to spend some of the money to share with their parents and so forth. Yeah, so those are the first point. Second, if they fall into problem, then only they would listen better and more willing to learn when they stumble upon problem. For example, very quick. So one day we are teaching about tennis. Yes. So when the students, first thing what we can do is we give some time for the student for them to play and for them to explore. And then once they see the single line, the double line, and then where is the service box and so forth, and then only they start to ask questions. When your student asks question, it means they are interested in that content. It means they wanted to learn that particular content. Yeah, so those are the things that we wanted to have in our student. Let them ask question. Let them find problem, issue. So they start think and then they start to ask question. Yeah, people remember better when they mistake. A few years ago, unfortunately, I've been one of the victim of scam because nowadays technology, lots of technologies available nowadays. So scammers are taking all the opportunity for them to find the next victim and so forth. So last time I was one of the victims that fall into all this scam. But once I've had that experience, so in the future, so I am much more careful, I'm much more patient, I'm much more wisdom in terms of making decision, in terms of compose when making decision and so forth. So the big point is that we learn better by making mistake. And we appreciate better when we learn mistake. So make your student work for their knowledge, skill, and values. So give lots of problem, give lots of scenario, which later we'll see. So hopefully our students could ask questions and they learn and they remember better. Remember, things that are free of charge are not appreciated by our students. Next one, competition among students. All right, so the next teaching hack is competition among students. So take some time for us to find a paper and a pen and maybe try to ask question. What are the pros and cons of having competition in your class? All right, paper and a pen. So here we have two pictures. Take about 10 seconds, take a look at the picture and really try to reflect on the picture on the learning in your class. Right. So the first picture on the right, we could see one individual on a horse just by himself. And also the next picture on the left screen, so we could see two students watching the net and ready to play basketball. All right. So John, we'll talk about competition. So what about competition if we are alone by ourselves? And what about competition if we put our students side by side? Okay, does anyone would like to share? Does anyone would like to maybe in your chat? Okay, anyone? So what happened in your class? What happened in your class if we put our students side by side? So what would happen then? I'm sure many of us have experience in doing that. So if we put them side by side and are ready to run 100 meters or maybe to play some obstacle course, so we could see most of the time the students are number one priority is to be number one, is to beat my friend, is to become number one, to get there first. So when that happened, when the priority is to be number one, the technique become second priority. The safety, the hazard become third priority. So instead of learning, they are competing with their friends. So when you are competing, you are not learning as what you should and not learning as much as you should when you compare to learning by or competing against yourself. So if we take a look again on the picture on the right side, sorry, on the right side, so we could see that person only with that horse. So that person must be focusing on himself, really remember all the process, all the procedures, all the technique, all the strategies that he needs to do in order to not fall from that horse, to control that horse, and to stay on that particular horse for the longest period of time. Yeah, so those are the main difference between if you put your students side by side, and also if you put your students just by himself and compete against himself and not his friend and so forth. Yeah. So I'm just gonna sorry. Okay, the next question will be, so how do we reduce competition among students during our teaching and learning? Okay, so now that we know if we put our student, we are talking about very young student. Yeah, we're talking about 13-year-old, 14 years old, or maybe even 15-year-old. They are very competitive, even us nowadays, right? In 25, 27, 30, if we put side by side with our friends, we always wanted to be number one. We always wants to compete. All right, so just try to imagine your student. So the next question that we should ask ourselves, how do we reduce competition among students in your class? So first thing first, avoid eye contact between students. If you don't see your friend, you start to focus more on yourself. You start thinking about yourself. So what I need to do. So what is the first step? What is the second step? What is the strategy? So how can I improve? Yeah, so if you don't compete with your friend and you start thinking more about yourself and the technique that. Second, move in different direction. So maybe we have two group. Yep, group A can move toward the north, while group B can run toward the south. So if they don't see each other, so they are much more likely to focus just on themselves and not the others. Third one, use time instead of repetition. So these are interesting as well that we hope to talk after this. The next one, use self-evaluation. All right, so that they can we encourage the student to compete with themselves rather than the others. So instead of we place the students side by side, maybe we can compete in terms of time. Maybe we can have a rubric. Maybe we can have one student to assess their friend rather than they compete each other. So those can provide better opportunity for them to learn and also for them to self-improve rather than competing. And last but not least, the least that we can do is to explain to your student, hey, remember student, this is your physical health education class, not the Asian Cup, not the World Cup or others. Right? So I need each one of us to focus on the task, focus on the technique, not on being number one and so forth. So these are 5 strategies I've done before. I find it quite effective. I find it very effective for us to reduce competition. Competition is good. Competition is good because it increases motivation. It stimulates your student to become and to perform better. But too much of a competition would become bad. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. If you consume paracetamol or ibuprofen in the dosage recommended, hopefully you'll be well. Okay, but if you tend to consume much more than what is recommended, so most probably you would have all sorts of other issue. So those are the things that we need to avoid. Sorry. Okay, the next one. Jom, we'll talk about repetition against time. Which one do you normally use in your class? Why? repetition. Okay, student, when I say the word go, I need each one of you to do 10 jumping jack. Those are repetition. Yeah. Second, okay, student, when I say the word go, I need each one of you to do as many jumping jack as you can in 1 minute. Go. Okay. What do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? Repetition against time. You can type it in the chat box if you want to. We have done this before, right? Okay, student, do it 10 times, do it 5 times. You need to do 20, 30. Have we used time before? Why not? No problem. Yeah, no problem. Uh, what could be some of the issue? We have to remember, yes, we have to remember that in your class, when we talk about classes, regular classes, so regular classes, we have so many students coming from different background. All right. So we have students coming from students athlete. So we have also students who are really keen into academic matters. We also have students who have some sorts of health issues, asthmatic problem, allergic. We also have students who prefer not doing activities and so forth. Yeah, I even have one student before who purposely did not want to bring her physical education attire simply because she preferred to sit during physical education and not doing anything rather than joining with the rest of uh, her classmates. So we do have students that way. So when we put, okay, student, so when I say the word go, I need each one of you to do 20 jumping jack or 20 push-up. So how do you feel the student would feel at that particular situation? Most probably your student would feel scared, your student would feel anxiety, your student would feel pressured, and your students would really push without really thinking about the technical aspect of that particular skill. Those are not good because we are in physical education class. It is different compared to if we are taking charge of our football school team, for example, or athletic and so forth. We are focusing more in classroom setting or context. So if we compare to time, okay, student, now when I say the word go, I need each one of you to do as much push up as you can in 1 minute. Go. So students athlete can do 20, no problem. All right. Students who have asthma, students who are probably sedentary before this, they can do 5, they can do 10, no problem. Okay, as long as you try your very best, as long as you really try to do with the correct technique, all of us are happy. Yeah, so if we use time instead of repetition, so student would feel much more relaxed, student would feel much more empowered, student would feel much more, they can control, they can really focus on themselves rather than competing. So those are very important message that I really wanted to share with all of us today with regards to competition to over, with regards to repetition and time. If we take a look about the recent research and so forth, most of the research agreed that using time concept is much more beneficial, it's much more helpful for the student learning compared to repetition. Yeah, so those are the things. Okay. Yeah, so these are the very quick. So repetition lead to boredom, fear of failure, over of getting injury. Just imagine for a short while, if your students are sedentary before this, and then you force them to do 20 push-up in a very short period of time, just try to imagine the risk that could, the students having, they could, get muscle space, muscle cramp, They could have muscle tear and so forth. So those are the injuries that we can and we should avoid when we are teaching physical education. And time also reduce fear of failure, focus on quality rather than quantity, and also empower learning for self-improvement rather than grades. Okay, the next one, in sync with students to stay relevant to them. Now, I feel this is equally important as well, right? For example, many of these students today in Malaysia, we have this one radio station we call as Fly FM, Hits FM. Those are much more in trend. Those are much more focuses on the younger generation. All those music, really pop, rap, and so forth. Okay, so if my students are listening to Hits FM, for example, and I'm listening to Classic FM, so that is not in sync. That is not compatible. So when you teach your student, when your students start asking questions, teacher, have you heard about Blackpink before? Have you heard about Lisa Blackpink? If you do not know her, so probably we cannot connect. And if you don't connect, we have to remember, when we are in academic, when we teach, it's not only physical, but also you have to tackle student emotion and also their cognitive aspect as well. Yeah, so I feel these are very simple strategy that I feel if we spend some time for us to really get to know what's happening around us, what are the things that your student like at this moment, I feel that we could speak, I feel that we could engage with our student much better. All right, so get to know your students or the current generation interests, in terms of their game, for example, mobile legend, music, movies, novel, and so forth. And in your class later on, in your class tomorrow, when you go for your teaching, so you wanted to use all this character, so you wanted to start your class with storytelling, and maybe you wanted to use plot and have your student to discuss the alternative ending to that particular story. For example, if we take the stories of Willy Wonka, the recent movies that we have in the cinemas, so maybe we can use one plot in that particular movies, and maybe we can encourage our students to discuss alternative ending to that particular movies. So that could promote lots of discussion, and those can really invite excitement in your class, and they're much more engaged, and they're much more into the content of our class as well, compared to if we talk about, maybe, I'm just giving example, compared to if we talk about Elvis Presley, compared to if we give example about P. Ramlee in Malaysia, for example. So if we give that kind of example, most probably our student did not know, and then the students cannot relate, and therefore they tend to become disengaged from you and the content as well, which is missed opportunity. All right. So apart from that, our choice of word, apart from the voice intonation, the gesture, and the facial expression, your choice of word would also influence how students may perceive the ideas and interest in engaging with the activities. So we do have one pre-service teacher before this. It's been few years now. So her name is Kamarina. So she's teaching 17-year-old in urban school in Shah Alam, in Malaysia. So in one point, so she wanted to do this activity we call as the belalang and burung belatok. It's a bird, cricket and a bird. And then once she do that particular game, so she said to me, Doctor, unfortunately, most of the students did not respond, and then they said to the teacher, these are very old game. Nobody play this belalang and belatok anymore. Okay, nobody plays this anymore because it is because of choice of word. And I said to her, Kamarina, what about if we change that particular cricket and bird to something much more relevant to that particular student? So I said to them, what about we use the character of Avengers? So we have Thor, we have the Superman, and so forth. And then once she do that, once she modified just the choice of words, still the same game, still the same procedures and so forth, but just with the choice of word. So she said to me that she could see a very significant difference in terms of the response and in terms of the reaction of the student toward that particular activity. Yeah, so those are something that maybe we can try to experiment and try to see if our student could respond better and much more effective to the choice of word that we use. Next one. Okay, good question, good answers. Agree to disagree. Yeah. Yes. So there are three questions. How are you feeling after the class? Does everybody enjoy today's class? Do you have any question? Does anyone have any question? Those are the common question, right? Many of us would ask that particular question to our student. Do you have any question? Yeah, do you enjoy today's learning session? Yeah. So probably okay, before we go to that better question, uh, just want to ask all of us today. So when you give that particular question, do you have any question? Did you enjoy today's class? So how was the response to that particular question? Very quick. Or maybe you have your mentee, or maybe you have teach at tuition center before, or maybe you have do some sorts of volunteering work. Maybe you have to deal with some people that are much more younger than you. So maybe some of us are giving that question to our students. So how was the response? Okay. Uh, No problem, no problem. So when I ask when I ask that question to my student, so they would say, Doctor, we feel very happy. Today class is the best class. We enjoyed very much. We learned so many things today. We talk to our friends. We communicate. We cooperate. So it tend to be very generic answer from the student. So I feel that is a big missed opportunity because when the students are giving that generic question, Doctor, it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was tip top, thumbs up. It was very generic. So the learning process does not really happen in that particular closure session. Okay, so that's why if you ask good question, you would get good answer from your student. All right, a good question would really, uh, you know, stimulate your student to think and really to give or provide more specific answer to that particular question. So let us take a look on the better question that maybe we can use tomorrow. Better question. So, what could be used as a substitute when you don't have a ball at home? So, when we played petang, all right. So the bull, bull is actually quite expensive. Very, very, very heavy, very hard as well. So most probably, most of your students do not have bull at their home. So we want to ask question. Okay, student, when you go back today, so if you don't have bull back home, what are the things? What are other things that you can use to substitute with that particular bull? And then your student will start to think, and your students start to give now teacher, doctor, tennis ball, foam ball, wiffle ball. So the more that they think, the more that they understand, they remember, and more likely they would continue to practice beyond classroom. Yeah, if they remember, they are much more likely for them to practice. If they appreciate and they remember, more likely they would practice for the many years, throughout their lifetime. Second, what would be the common mistake when we play tennis? All right. So, for example, lifting ball when serving. If you wanted to serve the ball when we play tennis, how high actually we should lift the ball? Is it that high? Is it this high? Is it eye level? Is it just chest level? So which Which height are we talking about? So those are good questions. Second, follow through across body. So what are the things that we need to do when we talk about follow through? So what would be the correct technique for us to do follow through? Okay, so those are good questions. Maybe we can have the student to demonstrate. Maybe we can have the student to talk to their friends. Maybe try to discuss with their partner about that particular question. And last but not least, what are some values for tennis that we can use in our daily life? I feel that these are very important questions because that particular question can help connect whatever that they have learned in your class and what's happening at their home, at the supermarket, anywhere else. All right, so those are very important questions that we can use to connect the concept and also the real life situation. So remember, good question, you would get good answer. Ask specific question, then you would get specific answer. Few more slides. Please bear with me. All right. So the next one. So evaluate student learning. So what we teach, we always want to evaluate. Again, so probably some of us would have this experience before. Okay, who can tell me what we learned today? Right, specifically. Ahmed, can you explain about the process of energy system? Jonathan, could you explain about the process of energy system? Have we done this before? Have you done this before? Maybe in your class? Maybe instead of everybody, maybe instead of asking 10 people in your class, because there's 10 people in your class, maybe instead of doing that, we choose some of these students. Ahmed, Jonathan, Rebecca, Alicia. So can you tell me about the energy system? So have we done that before? So the next question that we need to ask, what about the others? Did we want to know about what they understand too? Did we not care about that? It was a very legit question, isn't it? All right. So if we ask just few students, what about the rest of them? So did they understand? So that is the first issue. And second question, the things I've learned based from my experience, the more questions you ask, that is one of the way that we show that we care to the student. We show that we really we are concerned about that particular student. So if we don't ask questions, if we don't, give the opportunity for that student to talk or to write anything, so maybe your student would get the perception that you did not really care about that, which we do not want anytime or anywhere during our class. Yeah. So so the key that we need to understand and remember, so if we have 10 students in your class, that 10 particular student must be evaluated. Okay, so if you ask question, every 10 of that student must have the opportunity for them to respond to that particular question. The next question, what now? How? First one, we can start with group-based discussion. Right? So instead of just Ahmad, Jonathan, Alicia, instead of doing that, maybe we can divide them according to specific group, the group that we have before this. Group A, Group B, Group C. Okay, student, when I say the word go, I need each one of you to discuss in your group about this particular question. Question A, question B, and so forth. All right, and remember, in smaller group, they have much more opportunity for them to talk and for them to discuss. The more they talk, the more they discuss, the more the learning process would occur. Second, social walk and talk, my personal favorite. Okay, student, now, so we give them few questions. Student, so these are the questions. So now when I say the word go, so now it's 10:15, for example, or now it's 6:17. So when I say the word go, I need each one of you to start walking. So you can walk outside of the class, you can walk on the field, and come back into the class at 6:30 with that particular answer. So not only that your student will be talking, discussing, solving problem, but also your student would also active. And also they could be much more relaxed because they are walking, they are getting, they are in different environment and so forth. So that is a good activity that you should try and see how students respond. Group demonstration of the skill, peer evaluation, thumbs up. If you really understand about today's topic, thumbs up. If you not really sure what's happening, middle thumb. If you have problem with today's topic, thumbs down. Okay, and then rate scale. Okay, student, in a scale 1 to 5, rate today's teaching, rate your understanding. And students, especially students with primary school, we're talking about 10, 12, 7, 8 year old. So maybe instead of writing, maybe we can have the student to draw instead. So we give them question and ask them to draw, because drawing can provide much more meaningful about the things that they have learned, and maybe something they feel about that particular content. So not only that we understand better about our student understanding, but also we can get information for us to improve, for us to modify our future class, which is a good thing. Last but not least, teacher question, and all students answer in paper and via tablet. Okay, student, when I say the word go, I need each one of you to bring out a piece of paper and a pen. First question, how many energy system do we have? So students would write number 1, ATP PCR, number 2, oxidative system, and number 3, and so forth. Or they can use their tablet as well. So those are the things. One homework for all of us today. Why is it group demonstration of the skill? Why not just individual demonstration? Why not we call Alicia. Alicia, come to the front. Please demonstrate how to do forehand throw, for example. Why is it better for us to do group demonstration when compared to individual demonstration? That is one homework for each one of us to reflect and hopefully able to answer that particular question. Okay. Right. 3 essential hacks. So these are the fundamental that must be present whenever you teach in your class. Okay, so first thing first is the objective. Learning objective must be short, concise, and measurable. So these are very critical when we talk about objective, because objective provide the teachers with purpose, and learning objective provide the students with target. And when you have your learning objective and your lesson plan, so that will give you sense of confidence as well. So I really push my students, for example, for them to really detail, really critical in their lesson plan, because I feel that is very important, not only for them to really know what they wanted to teach, but also to give them sense of confidence for what they wanted to teach in their class. So learning objective. So by the end of this lesson, so each of these students should be able to demonstrate 2 out of 3 basic skills in hockey, for example. So by the end of today's lesson, student must be able to provide 2 strategy on how to play tennis, for example. So those very specific. Remember that a good objective and lesson plan, that it is specific, tangible, and measurable. So those are the things. Second, instruction short, concise, and consistent. So my personal favorite. So when I say go, when I say the word go, I need each one of you to stand behind your chairs. Go. So everybody would respond. And then once the students are doing activity, so I would shout freeze, and everybody would put both of their hands on their thigh. They have to bend their knees a little bit and eyes on me, ready for the next instruction. Okay, so you have to have one, coaching cues, learning cues, instruction. The first week, the second week, probably your class will become chaotic, very chaos, because everybody are just trying to learn, everybody are just trying to adapt to the new routine and so forth. But if you become a little bit patient, if you persisted in your effort, you would see in week 3, week 4, and or in the second month, your student would understand and your student would respond better to that particular instruction. Yeah, so this I urge that each one of us would have this, very personalized instruction. When I say go, so I need each one of you to write one thing on your paper. When I say go, I need each one of you to write to chord A, go. So everybody would run. Yeah, so those are the thing. And last but not least, crescent and block shape position. No line, please. So these are one more. I feel very simple and we can immediately do. When we are doing, for example, physical education. So we have the student in line. So we have line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, and so forth. So what could be the issue? What could be the problem if we have these students in line? What could be the issue? We have done this before, right? In our sports day, our school sports day, in our team building, maybe in our organization, gathering. So where the staff are doing some sorts of activity. So we have them in line, lots of line. So what could be the issue when we talk about line? Okay, so when we talk about line, simply if we have line, we cannot effectively see what's happening on the back. So we cannot really see what student number 7, what student number 8 are doing or understand at the back of that line. And the biggest problem when we talk about line, once you do not see your student and your student did not see you, they start to do something else, off-task behavior. And they start to play with their fingernails. We have experienced this before, right? They start to play with their pen. They start to disturb their peers, their friends, and they start to do something different and something that is not supposed to do in the class. That is the thing will happen. All right, so on how we can counter, on how we can make it better, is to have crescent, half moon, or C shape, and also blob shape as well. Blob, simply a circle. Circle number 1, circle number 2, circle number 3. So where you could see everybody clearly and your student can also see you clearly as well. Remember, if you could see them and they could see you, so they are much more likely for them to focus and much more to stay on task for longer period of time. So those are the key why we need to do crescent shape and blob shape. Right, crescent C shape. So you want to have about just 1 or 2 line maximum. And just one more thing, if I could add, before you start talking, you always wanted to be in front of the student. If you have a circle, so you don't want to be in the middle of that circle. That is definitely no. All right, so instead of in the middle of that circle, so what you wanted to do is for you to stand outside of that circle, or on the side of that circle, so that you could see better and student can see you better before you start talking. The key that you need to understand, before you start talking, make sure that you could see everybody in front of you. Okay, right. Okay, so last but not least, okay, so when I say the word go, I need each one of you to hustle and grab a piece of paper and a pen. Go. Okay, a pen and a paper. Brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody. Well done. Okay, so now for the last activity that we hope to do today, it's 1 minute paper. So when I say the word go, I need each one of you to write, to draw anything that you could recall, anything that you could remember from our today's webinar. Go. And you could use this question, what, why, how, when, and potential studies maybe as prompt to help you write the content in your paper. Some of us are academia as well. So maybe you can ask questions. So how can we, in terms of pedagogy, in terms of the content that we teach and so forth. 30-second left. Hope everybody would take some time for you to think, for you to reflect, and for you to write something meaningful on your paper. And stop. All done. Okay. And with that, thank you so much, everybody. So I really hope that each one of us today are able to learn, are able to get something from today's webinar. And I really hope that more importantly, the things that we have learned, although the smallest of it, I really hope that each one of us would really try to experiment, each one of us would try to do in your own class, and hopefully you could see how your student respond, and hopefully, as time goes on, we could be a better and much more effective educator, right? And remember, being teacher, being academia is the best profession that we could do in this world. So thank you to all teachers, and thank you everybody for attending today's webinar. Thank you.
Is there any questions from the participants side? You may ask. Is there any questions from the participant side? You may ask now. I hope there is no more questions from the participant side. We'll wind up the session. Thank you, Doctor. That was a thought-provoking talk. Thank you for your imparting knowledge and the remarks on the concepts. Thank you once again, Doctor. Participants will receive your certificates within 7 to 10 working days. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me, and all the best, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great day.